Hey guys, how you going? Thanks for joining me again. Hope you enjoyed the last video and my sort of highlights of my history in Games Workshop. And a huge shout out to the Jank Master for his recommendation to join the Facebook group for ex-GW members, because as of today, I did contact one of the guys that I work with in the Oxford store. That was Dean. Lovely, lovely guy. Probably one of the most memorable people I met over there anyway. For his, he's just a charming guy, I think. Always smiling, always happy. Lovely to talk to. So yeah, finally got in contact with him, so that was awesome. And as it happens, he's presently, or has been living in Finland for a long time, maybe 20 odd years or something. So he's got his own business there, and he's still into his rock and roll, likes heavy metal and that kind of stuff. So looks like he's an artist, so he does artwork for bands and that kind of thing that he's working with. So yeah, it's been really awesome to chat with him, and and hopefully, and he's been to Japan this year, I believe, in April. I don't know if that's this year or last year or something, but I think it was this year he came to Japan. So man, if I knew that, I would have definitely went to go and see him. So hopefully next time, or we can go and see him in Finland, because I'd love to go and see and visit all the Scandinavian countries, do a tour there. That'd be brilliant. So that's added to the bucket list. And and he, we sort of reminisced about people we knew from the days at the store and that kind of thing. And I'm happy to say that all the guys are still alive and well that I knew in that time. So he has been keeping contact with them every now and again. And it looks like Dean had worked for GW for quite a long time, until a point where he obviously left and started his own sort of life in business venture, and maybe he met a girl or something in Finland, or I don't know, maybe it was the rock bands that he was interested in that drove him to migrate there and start a new life. I'm not really sure. So hopefully we'll get him on the podcast. As I told him, we're doing a podcast now, and I would love his insights and his history in the workshop era during the 90s and all that kind of thing. He's quite keen to do it, so we're definitely going to do that at some point. So yeah, thanks, Jank Master. That was awesome, mate. I really, really appreciate that. Really made my day, actually. That really did. So, and I just finished an interview with Balder, who's the guy behind the Warhammer Renaissance group on Facebook. It's like an alternative homebrew rules that he designed based on 4th edition, and it does lend some concepts from 5th edition and 6th edition and 7th edition. I don't know about 8th edition. I don't know if you mentioned that at all. But yeah, sort of things that maybe he liked that were changed in later editions, and he sort of tweaked the rules, not so much, just a little bit from my understanding, not having actually seen the rules that he has written himself, but it's all in the file section in his group that you can download those all in one big file apparently, and you've got all the army books and everything like that had like slight maybe point changes, and I think mainly point changes, and maybe some restrictions on what kind of heroes or you can take. But basically the main concept is that the regiments are more worth their points rather than them being sort of like throwaway units that will just get destroyed as soon as one hero or general or warlord or whatever it might be riding a monster comes in contact with them and charge them and sort of beats them in hand in combat and just overrides them, and that's it. So yeah, we'll have to see what it's like. And I did, in the interview at the end, I did say that I think I'll get either Justin or one of the guys to trial it out with me and just see what it's like. It might be just a nice fun alternative to 5th edition. And I've got the 4th edition Magic set here, the Battle Magic, and I love that set for a number of reasons, but the main one is that it's got all the colleges of magic in it, which Boulder also really loves, and even though I incorporate those into my 5th edition games anyway, it'd be cool just to give it a shot and just give it a try and see what it's like. So that podcast will be uploaded at some point over the next couple of days, so look out for that. It's kind of irregular sort of timing, but I thought, what the hell, if there's an interview there that I've done and it's there, why wait? Just upload it. It'll be a shorter episode, but I think me and Justin are probably going to do it every once a month. Us get together once a month, like I talked about before in the early videos, and then I'll just upload a podcast when I have an interview ready with somebody that's been done and it's ready to go live. And why hold on to it? Let's just get it out there, and people can enjoy it while they're painting or driving or whatever they might be doing. So I look forward to catching up with Dean at some point in the future and just having a good yarn with him. It's like a really good, good chat with him. He gave me some insights on what the other guys are doing now. Some are teachers, some old Greg, the assistant manager. He's like he works at some kind of supermarket in the warehouse or something like that. Someone was teaching English in Singapore or something as well. So yeah, they've all sort of branched off and done their own sort of thing over time, as we all did. I kind of stagnated where I was back in Australia, but then certain events took hold of my life, and then I ended up in Japan and falling in love with my now wife, and which is good because for a long time I didn't go anywhere, didn't travel anywhere, and wished now that I had seen more of the world and that kind of thing. And I'll certainly encourage my son when he comes of age that he should go out and do the same, go and see things. Certainly gives you a good perspective on things, because I was talking to David Schooley before as well on Messenger that he's moved into a new place and there's no furniture, and he's sort of sleeping on the floor for the next couple of days, and that sort of triggered that memory of living in Earl's Court in London when we first got there, and sleeping on the floor, and and basically finding a mattress that had been left by someone on the ground outside, because what they did in London was that anything they wanted to dispose of and get rid of, they would just chuck out on the street. So you'd quite often see, as you walked along the walkway, just random stuff like a washing machine or certain appliances, clothing, blankets, mattresses obviously, and all this kind of stuff dumped on the street. And people, and I can't exactly remember whether we got one off the street but people would get them off the street and use them to sleep on. And that's what I call living rough, and people do it nowadays. It's still a reality for some people, but we were young and under different circumstances, so it was different for us. David's not destitute. He's got a good job now, and he'll be well sorted out in his accommodations. Which is good to hear. So yeah, good chat with Boulder today. I did mark up his country of his place of birth, which is terrible. I did that twice now. I first inferred that he came from Sweden, but he said, no, I come from Denmark. And then during the podcast, in the beginning, I said, oh, so you hail from Finland? No, I come from Denmark. And I thought, oh God, I'm so sorry. They're very sensitive about that, And I didn't do it intentionally at all. It was just, I was talking to Dean, and he was from Finland, so I think I just had it in my mind. I just had Finland in my mind, and the guys from the Old World Lives podcast, they're from Sweden, so Denmark just wasn't on my radar at that particular time. So I apologise again to Boulder about that, because some of them, he said he doesn't mind, but I know they do, because it is, for some of them, quite a sensitive thing. So no disrespect intended at all. But yeah, he's a really lovely guy, very knowledgeable about that 90s sort of era in gaming, and got some nice stories to share. So that will be coming soon. Now, when did we finish on the story yesterday? Talking with Dean before about that, working in Oxford and all that. It did bring back it did trigger some memories. There was some crazy guy that walked in one day, and he was crazy. As you would often find in London, you'd find certain people that maybe had been discharged from mental institutions or whatever, that sort of, were relatively harmless, I think, but were sort of wandering the streets and, that kind of thing. And he came in and he said to one of the guys behind the register, I think it was me or one of the other guys, he said, can I see your dice? And I said, okay, well, all right. So we just got the box of dice or whatever it came in those days, and took them out, and he wanted to look at them all and all that kind of thing, and play around with them and all that kind of stuff. And in the after so many minutes, we could clearly see that was something not right. He said, okay, then that's it, and then he wanted to leave, and then there was outside the store, if anybody remembers, there's like a large escalator that had like a mirrored panels on the side of it. So you could see a reflection from those mirrored panels as you looked at it. You're facing it outside the store. So he sort of stood there facing the mirrored panels, and he sort of shrugged his shoulders in front of the panels in some kind of bizarre gesture, and then just walked away. It was quite bizarre. So yeah, I had a couple of incidents there with some real characters, but generally all the guys that came to the store were kids. Maybe on that Thursday night or where it was like the big WAR night when they came to play games and stuff with the staff and all that kind of thing. I didn't really enjoy those nights, to be really honest with you. I didn't really enjoy those nights at all. It was bloody awful. I wasn't really a wah type guy. Some guys are really good at it, and were really trained or just had a natural ability to really psych the kids up and get them really going, and got into the whole theme of it. But yeah, for me it wasn't really something that I really took to be honest. I wasn't really, for the kids, I don't think I was really a well-liked person. I think some guys, the kids sort of gravitated towards, and they just knew they were really good, and they just, either good painters or just nice personalities like Joe, for example. I hope to contact at some point and get him on the podcast too. Oh, just threw my paint across the floor. That was good. And then, yeah, he was one of the guys that I think the kids quite liked, because he was just a nice guy, you know. I think I just sort of gave off the impression I wasn't really interested in him, and you know, sort of brushed him aside. And I still do it at school. Like, you know, when I'm teaching kids, I like them. I like the kids now. I have a lot more time for them, but some of them are just really painful to deal with, and yeah, that's not so pleasant. But just got to do it. And I think I told you about I did play some HeroQuest with some now they're high school students now. Wonderful bunch of kids, and yeah, those kind of experiences I really cherish. You know, that introducing them to things that they've never seen or done before. So that was quite cool. So I think we're on to Luton, aren't we? The Luton store. So yeah, I think at that time I moved in with a guy I met through Games Workshop Oxford. He was a customer, and I was looking for a place to live because, you know, I was sort of moving from place to place all the time. The two guys that I was with, Marcus and Brad, they sort of travelled off, and they went on a sort of a world tour of various places like Egypt and the US, and I think Brad went off to the Oktoberfest and all that kind of stuff. I was always working, you know, and I sort of missed out on all that kind of stuff. But and I sort of when they sort of left, I sort of just went and found my own accommodation, and luckily that guy Gareth, I think his name was, could put me up in his spare room, like his hobby room basically. That's where I actually first played Man of War. I bought a pro-painted fleet off my manager back then, Richard, and I played with that on the floor in that hobby room where I was staying. You know, we lived really rough. You know, like, you know, when I think back at it, you know, I didn't eat a proper meal. I didn't eat vegetables maybe once, I think. You know, it was really, I didn't cook. I think maybe I only cooked once, I think, the entire time I was there. And I can't remember what I really lived on. I think it was mainly, you know, what they call Burger King. We call Hungry Jacks in Australia, but it's called Burger King there. And I think I mainly lived off that. I think just junk food, and I got really, you know, sort of unhealthy. I got so sick. I remember that definitely. I got so sick with a flu or virus that just put me out for a whole week. When I was working at Oxford store too. I got really, really sick, really crooked. I couldn't get up. I couldn't get out of my bed. It was terrible. It could have been really serious, actually. And I eventually went to the doctor, and he prescribed some, you know, medicine, and eventually got better, thank goodness. But yeah, you know, I was really, you know, I was quite a fairly solid, tall guy, but I think by the time I came back from England, I was quite a skinny, unhealthy, very pale looking dude back then. Anyhow, yeah, so picking up from our last conversation, my manager wanted to change things up a bit, get some new fresh blood in the store. So I was moved to Luton, and JP, the French guy, he was sent to France. And whatever happened to the other guys, I don't know, and maybe Dean can fill me in with all that kind of information later on in our future episode. So, yeah, when to start on the Luton adventure. Now, anybody who knows Luton, I know they've got an airport, and I think that's about it. It's a fairly quiet, sort of sleepy town from what I remember of it. There weren't many customers, I know that. It was a totally different atmosphere from the Oxford store, that's for sure, living in London. I know I needed to get a train to get there from where I lived in London. The manager there was nice, I can't remember his name, he was a nice guy who eventually got the boot because the sales figures weren't up to scratch, and they basically just moved him on to be an assistant manager somewhere else. And so for a time there, we were managerless. We didn't have a manager. It was me and a couple other guys, and we would just play up, because there's no customers, so we'd turn up the music really loud, and I think Prodigy was like a big group back then. So we'd have the Prodigy really loud, and we'll just stuff around. We didn't really do much work, and it was a crazy house basically. And then all of a sudden, this guy walks in, a customer, and an Irish guy, and he starts talking to us about his Space Wolf army and all this kind of stuff, and it's all right, cool, and this is while the music was blasting and blaring in the background, and he starts talking to me because I was at the register, and then he drops it on me that he is the new manager, and he had like a really scary look on his face, like he was basically sent from HQ to this store to clean things up. He was like the head kicker basically, and he basically said, if you can't vacuum clean this floor so it's absolutely spotlessly clean, I'm gonna sack you by the end of the day. So we had our sort of marching orders, and we're all sort of like really worried that we were all going to get the sack, and a lot of us, especially me, like if I got the sack, I would have to go back home. It'd be just disastrous. So we managed to get ourselves back into his good graces. He was a really hard taskmaster. I don't know if he spent time in the military or something, I don't know, but he was like just a real head kicker, like he was basically just sent there to shape things up and get people out that weren't pulling the socks up, kind of thing. And that's the kind of mentality that the GW guys had in the sort of higher echelons of management in those days. Maybe it still exists today. I don't know. I have absolutely no idea. It was a strange place in GW then, and I distinctly remember in the Oxford store when I was there. There was a guy that came from Australia, and he was another one of these kind of head kicker type guys that basically enforced certain rules that must be adhered to and followed during all times, and if you didn't do it, then basically you're out. Like they would just sack you on the spot, and just keep you, in fear of losing your precious job that you've been sort of dreaming of all these years, kind of thing. And basically a prick, I'll say that without any hesitation, he was a prick. Which I will get to our second meeting with him at some point later. But for now, the manager that I had at the Luton store, let's just say that this particular guy wasn't a very nice person. And he probably knew he wasn't a very nice person. But we were young, and we were just mucking around and that kind of thing, and we just wanted to have fun. And man, you're working in Games Workshop for a living, you just get to paint models and talk to people about hobby and stuff like that. But he run this really tight ship, and basically his ass was on the line, I suppose, if he couldn't make the sell figures by the end of the month. So things just got a lot more serious there, and just not such a great place to work in after that. there was like some kind of sale, like when the games used to have sales on, and they used to sell, you buy two box sets and you get one for free and that kind of thing. Anyhow, I think it was at this time. I'm not sure if it was with the I think it might have been the previous manager, but I'm not sure. I just can't remember. But anyhow, this weekend was coming up, and of course I overslept. And I was coming from London, so I had to get the train and all that kind of thing. I came up like about an hour and a half late to this event. So, but anyhow, I got away with it because the manager, being such a nice guy, and he was a tremendous bloke. He didn't give me a hard time about it. He said, "Okay, well, whatever, just get on the register and away you go," and that was that. You know what I mean? And I went to a games day, and I think it might have been at Luton Store that I was there. I'm not sure. Yeah, it's really hard to place all these events in order, but I know I went to a games day in the UK. That was a pretty big thing. I didn't have time to see much stuff because I was working. I was at the stands, and I have very little memory about that. But I just remember being on the stand and taking people's money and them shouting at me what they wanted, and grabbing the blisters off the racks and all this kind of stuff. That was a crazy atmosphere, but yeah, it was cool, really cool though. And the funny thing about memory, it's all there. It's all stored away. It's all there, but it just needs to be unlocked somehow. Like, I wish, or I hope there's going to be some kind of, device that allows you to unlock all those memories, that they'll come back to you. But anyhow, yeah, so with Luton Store, what else is most memorable about that? I think that was it, really. It was pretty uneventful. I don't think I was there for very long. I think maybe a couple of months or something like that, at the very most. Maybe 3 months at the very most. I'm just going to grab some tea. And I do remember painting the chaos, chaos character on the dragon. I think that was for the Champions of Chaos book. Was it? No, it must have been for the Chaos book, because it was 4th edition. So it must have been for the Chaos box set. There was some kind of character that was riding on a dragon, like it was all yellow and orange and all that kind of thing. Anyhow, we had to paint those for the one for the store, so I had a great time painting that, and just sitting down and just really enjoying painting that model up. And one of the guys said, "Gee, Josh, you're not a bad painter. Why don't you work for the studio?" And I said, "Mate, there's no way I'm going to work for the studio. Like this, what chance would I have, with those guys? They're like so much better than me." And anyhow, one day this memo came through the store, because they have like these internal memos, that they were hiring at the studio for miniature painters, and they were looking for people internally to join the studio. So the guy said, "Oh, Josh, you got to do this. You got to try it." And I said, "Yeah, okay, I might give it a go and just see what happens." And I honestly wasn't expecting it. It would be. The dream was to work for Games Workshop. As like a red shirt, but like to work in the studio. Wow, that would be incredible. So I sent away my application, and at some point I got a reply from the manager saying, "Yep, they want to see you, like they want to give you an interview." And basically that entailed going to Nottingham and staying in one of their shared houses, or one of their houses they owned, to accommodate people that are travelling there, and staff and that kind of thing. And who should I be sharing my house with but no other than John Wigley. And John was there for the same reason I was going, basically, to go for an interview and try to get a job at Games Workshop, which he did successfully, of course. He spent a number of years working there as a fine illustrator for Games Workshop. Really top bloke. And now I've luckily made contact with John again through Facebook, and he actually married a Japanese woman, a Japanese lady, and he's got I think one daughter or two daughters or something. I know it's definitely one. And he comes here maybe once a year with his family to obviously see the in-laws and that kind of thing, which is a real big spin out, you know. And so John was there. I just remember getting a curry and some beers with him and sitting down and playing FIFA, one of the FIFA games, maybe 2000 or 2005. What? No, it couldn't be 2000, of course. It'd be 1994, I guess, whatever that game was, 1995 or whatever edition it was, on the PS1. And we sat there and just played that. Like all night, because I loved football. I love football games. I didn't have a PlayStation, so this whole idea of playing a football game. I think I played football games on the NES, renting them from the video store and that kind of thing. I've never played FIFA until that point, and just totally obsessed playing it, and just wanted to play it again and again and again. And John was kicking my ass. Just thrashing. I was like playing Australia, I was playing like, England or something like that. Yeah, good times. So I do remember that very much. And the next day I went to the studio. Simon, I don't remember his last name, but Simon was like the studio manager during that time. So, pretty awesome feeling getting to go into the studio and then meeting all the people there, as they give you a bit of a tour around the studio, and you get to meet, I met Jace Goodwin in his own little private little section of the studio where he sculpted miniatures, and he had this entire collection of metal castings of miniatures that he's made, all on these big shelves around him. He was a chain smoker, Jez. I don't know if he still smokes, but he was like smoking one after the other, just staring out the window. I don't think he was too engrossed in whatever he was designing at that time, but I often think, looking back, that maybe those guys are just over it. Maybe those guys are just, designed so many miniatures that they've just had enough. Maybe that's what Jez was feeling that day. I don't know, but he had his own little room, private room for himself, and then went to see Nat. Obviously Kev Adams had already left at that stage, which is a shame, because I would love to have met him. But met Ali Morrison and Trish, and I think Colin Dixon, the Perry twins. Mike McVeigh had his own little private room upstairs in that studio at that time with the guy who was doing the scenery. And I went to see the artists as well, like John Blanche. I don't think John Blanche was there. Jeff Taylor was there, I know that, and Wayne was there. Wayne was a top bloke. And it's quite a big operation. There's many different departments, and the guys in the White Dwarf team, of course, and all that as well. Alan Merritt was quite an odd bloke, truth be told. A bit more about that later. But yeah, so basically, now you got to remember that I didn't take any miniatures from Australia to England, and I'd only been painting for about 2 years. About 2 years, I think. From HeroQuest to 4th edition, maybe 2 or 3 years I've been painting miniatures. So not a great length of time. I've never entered a competition. I've never won anything. Now, I think the sort of prerequisite of people joining the heavy metal team was that you'd have to be sort of well recognized as someone who'd won something, or you'd have to be pretty good, like pretty established and all that kind of thing. You wouldn't require training, and you could just jump in the job and do whatever they wanted you to do, kind of thing. So the only miniatures I had were some models for my Necromunda gang, my Escher gang that I'd painted up, and that's all I can remember. Maybe there was some other stuff, I just can't remember, that I painted up in our little share room that we had when I lived in London before. So that's all I had, and the guys in the studio looked at these figures, and just to see their faces, they were not impressed by what they saw. They just were not at all moved or impressed by my quality of painting. So then I sort of thought, maybe it wasn't such a good move, coming up so early, and maybe I should have really tried to do my best kind of, work and that kind of thing. But I think Simon just gave me the benefit of the doubt and said, look, mate, I'll give you a miniature. You can sit down and paint for the day and just see how you go. So he gave me a High Elf Phoenix Guard model, and I think I had to, cleaned it up, prime it and all that kind of thing. I think, can't exactly remember. And then I just sat there and just painted. I was keen as mustard, so super keen, and I just wanted to get this miniature finished as quickly as possible so I could show him and all this kind of thing. And brought it back to him, and he'd say, I think this needs a little bit more work here and there, and all that. So after a few more times, he said, okay, that looks pretty good. And maybe I think he had to show it to one of the other guys, like I think Neil was like the head of the painting heavy metal team at that time. And for whatever reason, I think I just got really lucky, and maybe they were desperate, but I got a place. I got a position, which was like, wow, like I could not believe how lucky I was to land a job in the heavy metal team. Like, this was the biggest thing that could have ever happened to me. So I quickly moved to Nottingham and found accommodation close by to the studio. I was actually living with some drug dealers, which probably wasn't the best move. I didn't know that at the time, but a bunch of guys who smoked copious amounts of marijuana or hashish, or whatever it was called back then. And there was basically a bit of a party house in the building that I was staying at. I think looking back in hindsight, what I should have done, no, that wasn't for everybody. There was a group of people living in this one group of flats, and it was divided over different floors, but you had like a communal living room and that kind of thing, a TV, and people could come down and sit in the lounge and watch TV, and you had your own little separate room. And I would often sit with those guys out there and that kind of thing, or just paint my miniatures on the table there. I could go to the studio on the weekends, on Saturdays, because a lot of the guys were there to work, and I would just go in there on Saturday and just paint miniatures. It was quite a lonely time for me, I think, because I didn't have my friends there, and I didn't have a good support network. I like I said, I wasn't eating healthily. I hadn't really eaten a cooked meal in a long time. So I was basically just running on the fuel in my body was just running on my love of the hobby and all that kind of stuff, and just being there at that moment. So that's basically the the start of that. So I think I might leave it here today, guys. I've almost finished this for you, David, so I hope you enjoy. Hope you've been enjoying this little bit of painting session on your ogre. So last night I have pretty much finished the Swords Master. Maybe I just need to clean up a little bit here and there, but I think he's pretty much done. So I think those color schemes are working well. And yeah, guys, hope you enjoyed today's session. And tomorrow I will fill you in some more details about my time in the studio and my experiences there and other stories. So I hope you had good fun. It's been good doing these sessions again. I'm glad I'm back doing them every night, and I feel more energized now, having made contact with my friend Dean, and soon I hope to make contact with other guys that I have known back in the UK. So thanks very much for watching. I'm going to leave you with some stunning images from some models that I found on the Hero Hammer group today. I think it was from Lee, who had this stunning Prince Emmerich dragon. So enjoy those images and some other ones that maybe are on my phone as well. Okay guys, take care. I'll see you in the next one. All right, bye.